Hey everybody, Riot Mort and Riot Kent back again for another patch post-mortem where we look back at the last patch and say that we did everything right even if we actually didn't. Don't take responsibility for anything, just to inflate our egos and assume we're amazing and then log off the video. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that's exactly what we do every single time. We are never here for like an hour debating every little change that we made or anything like
No.
that and then feel really bad about ourselves. It never happens.
No, we're flawless. How dare you
Yeah.
accuse... No, obviously here to talk about what went right, what went wrong, and all that jazz. So, yeah.
Yep. I'm
So,
ready, Mort.
all right. Well, so this patch, just to let you know, we're filming this on Wednesday, the 20th. So there's still a whole nother week of the patch, but no B patch this week. We have a pretty solid idea how things landed. I'd be shocked if anything drastically changed in the next 3 days. So we should be able to talk about it pretty handily. So, but yeah, we'll go through the patch. And then obviously we have to talk about the hot fix we had to do because that's clearly went perfectly and was flawless. And yeah, should be good. So cool. You played much this patch?
Yeah, I did. I struggled for a bit the last patch, and then because I refused to play Siphon or Shiryu, but then this patch, I figured it out, I think, and clicked. So I'm excited to play more.
Nice. Nice.
About you?
Cool. All right, well, let's get into it, and hopefully it won't take too long here.
Yep.
Game time. So we took off a total of 50 seconds off the game. You'll never be, it'll shock you, but average game time went down about 50 seconds, turns out. Um, I think this change worked. I think it actually acted as a think fast nerf, exactly the amount we needed. Think fast is still good, but like not as easily abusable. I think these rounds being a little less dead time is good. I think it was painful for a lot of players though, and it's funny because remember when we used to do the like 10 extra seconds per round or 5 extra seconds per round, and then we took it out after the second patch. I'm just more convinced that like at this point in the game's life, we're 3 years into the game, we should ship the times we think are correct and not mess with times mid set. Because I think a lot of players, it was very jarring to be like, wait, I'm out of time. I'm not used to this after the 200 games I've already played. So,
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's just, I think we can, like, if it's something like really new, like I guess the first time we ever shipped augments, maybe we give more time so that players have time to like read everything. But I think we can also like take it away pretty sh quickly rather than like we let, the augment rounds stay long for a very, very long time and everyone just got really used to it.
yeah, it's like, on set 8, when you have the thing, it's like, I'm really going to bias towards like finding the right time for the thing rather than like, whatever. So
I
I,
know what
I
you're
I think we just
doing.
need to get it right the first time.
Yeah, the thing.
The
Yep.
thing, just to mess with you. All right. Player damage. This change was good and seems to have fixed the problem. I don't see any more stage 10 screenshots of people being held in prison anymore. That being said, it sounds like maybe we need to do something similar for hyper roll if it's not already there. So
Yep, that is something we're talking about internally. So
cool,
likely going to get there.
cool. All right, large. That's a lot of paragraphs. All
Oh,
right.
wait. On
Yes.
the player damage thing. Hyperroll, we wanted to ship it with this just as
Oh
like
right.
so everyone knows, but you have the little stage icon and that needs a little bit of like art and UX work, things like that. And so that's why it didn't go out right away.
That's right. I forgot that. So yep. All right. The assassin change. The assassin nerf. I think this ended up okay. You could maybe argue the six nerf wasn't supposed to happen. If you truly invest in six assassin, it should pay off. I also think right now it's actually a bait to play six assassin. I think you end up too much clumping, and like especially because assassin jumping is sort of random, you end up with like not the right assassin jumping into the right spot, and so it's almost always better to play like four. It's kind of how I'm feeling about assassins, and so we might have to bribe that movement pain with extra power. But I think the two was definitely correct here, and I'm very happy we did the two nerf here. Um, Four debatable, six I think was a mistake.
Personally, I think this was all correct. Assassin still seems really strong. I think the six assassin thing, you make a really good point. I think like pro assassin players know how to like declump themselves so that their important units jump to the correct spots. But the majority of players who like, just kind of dabble in assassins play it once in a while will like screw themselves over by playing six assassins. So Yeah, that's also like a really good point. But like the ceiling of Assassin is still really high, and so like the players who are good at it, I think still make like I feel like this nerf was warranted for that reason because it's still so strong.
All right, you ready for a salty Mort joke here? You know what would solve the
Uh-huh.
six assassin problem? If we only shipped four assassins. But you know what'd be even better than that?
No
Zero
assassin,
assassin. All right, kidding, kidding. Cool. All right,
unless.
Astral. So unfortunately, this is a bit of a miss because of the bug. Unfortunately, you can still do the astral rotation thing. It only doesn't work the first time, and then after that, it does work. So we do need to fix that bug. It's a little bit of a disappointment that we couldn't get that perfect the first time. But I will say the new counter is freaking amazing. And it works 99% of the time. So that thing's cool. I think team did a great job on that. And then we have the astral trait buff. I think you could debate that 3 was incorrect here because 3 is already getting the utility of you get free 3 stars, you get your 3-star Nidalee, you get your 3-star Varus, etc., etc. Only 6 and 9 really needed the love. I think the 6 and 9 changes were fine, as much as Astral is a problem for different reasons. But I actually think long term, even at balance, there's a world where 9's supposed to be even higher.
Yeah, I agree. I think like astral power this patch is obviously really high, but it has nothing to do with these changes at all. So I know these changes seemed right, other than like yeah, like you said, Astral 3 probably didn't need any more buffs. So
You know, Astral emblem has been removed. Could you imagine this patch if we hadn't?
yeah, I don't want to.
So I'm going to call that a slam dunk for a variety of reasons. But if you remember when we called out that we were moving it, where we're like, it kind of works because Astral's bad right now. Imagine a patch where Astral's good. Oh
Yep,
God. So kind
yep,
of glad we pulled the trigger when we did here.
yep, I agree.
Cool. Cannoneer. Okay, this is a debatable one because if you read Clear's Reddit thread, clearly we screwed up here. But I don't know that I agree. If anything, I'm finally seeing like 4 and 5 Cannoneer actually be an option. It's giving you some damage. Now, is it enough? Maybe not yet. Is there still issues with like Ricochet? Maybe. We've still got Corky Fizzle issues and things like that. But directionally, this actually feels correct. So I don't know.
Yep.
I think this is correct. And to comment on Clear's Reddit thread, they're like, just give them AD. I'll be very clear. We are not going to give Cannoneer a bunch of AD. Very clear on that.
Can you wait? What was Clear's Reddit thread?
There was a Reddit thread where they were discussing that our direction for Cannoneer is just pushing them in the wrong direction. No one's ever going to play vertical Cannoneer unless we give them a bunch of AD. So
Ah, okay. I don't know. I disagree. I feel like this change was actually a slam dunk. And I feel like vertical cannoneer, like if you take the heart, you take the even whatever it is, like if you play 4 in the mid game and then even into the late game, like it can really work and it's actually really strong. Like even without carrying Corki, like you can re-roll the other units and it's like really powerful. So personally, I think this is really good and like players are kind of shying away from it because everyone's kind of going towards like the S tier meta comps, but this is up there and it's really good. So I feel like this was a good change.
yeah, there's that Tristana reroll comp that was taking off for a while, the Tristana Guardian one. So
Yep, yep. Really popular in China.
yeah. Mirage Dawnbringer. I think we're finally where Mirage Dawnbringer is supposed to be. I doubt we can go much lower. It seems worth playing. There's some cool new comps around it. Obviously, they still kind of falter to some of the high DPS of like the Varus and Zaya right now, but like I think this is the line, and I think it's probably where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's come down quite a lot from where it started, ish, but like, yeah, feels right now.
Ragewing, directionally correct, maybe not enough. 6 and 9 Ragewing still not very popular. We still have the problem of Ragewing emblem is like this weird, confusing bait that no one wants to build. That's a problem we're going to have to solve. We weren't able to ship a solve this patch. But I think the 3 nerf was like the right amount. I think 3 Ragewing feels what it's supposed to right now. So there might just be more room to go here, and this is just another side effect of us trying to go light touches as we can. So
Yeah, I think like 6 is debatable, 9 is like maybe could be more power. I think the main like reason that Ragewing is failing as a vertical is just Shyvana's inconsistent and like hard to play. So I feel like that's kind of what's dragging it down, but like the trade itself is actually like probably good.
Yeah, the problem with Shyvana right now too is like you kind of have to play her AP, and if you play her AP, you don't really need Ragewing anyway. You just kind of blow everything up. But
Yeah.
all right, Revel. This is another one I would say directionally correct. Revel is going to have this challenge I think for a long time that obviously people are going to call us out on, which is Revel Deja, very very strong. Especially an emblem that gives you a static shiv, which is lowering the enemy's magic resist and then doing a bunch of magic damage. And then Revel Deja is also lowering their magic resist, so there's like little counterplay. But I think Revel also is like the main reason we did this nerf in the first place was like it was a little too good early and mid game. Now we're kind of getting to the point where it's like, and you're gonna see it's funny because next patch 2 gets nerfed again, but it's just too early. It's just a lot of flat damage, and this is another one of those challenges with flat damage. So
Yeah, directionally correct. Ended up like slightly powerful, and we definitely need to do something about Revel Crown. But other than that, yeah,
yep.
directionally correct.
All right, Shimmerscale items. A lot of micro adjustments here. I'm gonna try to go quick here. Crown of Champions having less health. Yeah, sure. Still a good item. 9 Shimmerscale still doing great.
Yep, agree.
Determined Investor less health. Yeah, fine. No big deal.
Agree.
Diamond Hands less health. Probably unnecessary since we also did the duration nerf. I think probably should have done one or the other, and I think the duration wasn't the correct one. So this to me, this line felt unnecessary looking back.
Yeah, and I think that line also just like I mean, I think we could have done that, but maybe just went lighter on the immunity duration to like 1.5.
Yeah, see that one. Okay, that's a debatable one. I think for sure. I still think the item's good. It's like 2 seconds of immunity, and 2 seconds of immunity is a very good item. Um, but it's certainly, if we talk about like swings, this might have been too hard a swing, right? The item went from like this omega powerful, amazing item to like, meh, it's fine. You
Yeah,
know?
I think we're learning that like 2 seconds of immunity is just extremely high amounts of immunity. Just like it just feels really bad for the other player because like they're doing nothing and also healing from nothing because we have a lot of healing in this set. But 1 second also just feels like, did I really block anything on the Diamond Hand player side? So like maybe there's like an in between that like works better. Or I mean, 1 second could also just be correct because overall 2 seconds of immunity is just also
Yeah.
just really powerful.
Yep. Draven Axe being nerfed. Yep. I think people still really want Draven's Axe. I think this was a good nerf.
Agree.
So I think this one worked. Gambler's Blade buff. Yep. I mean, I think that one's fine.
Feels good now, yeah.
Yep. Goldmancer Staff buff. Good.
Agree.
Uh, Needlessly Big Gem. This one might not have been enough. I think this one still is kind of like the crap item you don't feel great about.
Yeah, it's kind of sad because it's like, I mean, it used to just proc so frequently that like giving that 2 gold per 2 units was too much, but now it feels that like sometimes you don't even, I mean, many times you don't even get the gold, and it's like, should that go back down to 2, and maybe we can like shave off some of the health again, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I almost want it to have a different identity, but I think that's one of the ones we need to look at in a future patch.
Yeah, I agree.
Mogul's Mail. I actually think this was a slam dunk. I think now there are some times where it doesn't proc, and it's actually like oh my god, is it going to proc or not? This feels much healthier and still a good item. So I think this one worked pretty well.
I agree.
Cool. All right, Tempest. Tempest, we lowered the attack speed of 2 slightly and raised the attack speed of 6 and 8. I think raising the attack speed of 6 and 8 was good. I don't think it solved the core problem. And I think the reason people still slam 2 is they still slam 2 for the reason they slammed it, which is the 1 second stun, 10% damage. I think while this buff is fine and going to stay, we should have tackled the 2 nerf harder.
Agree.
Cool. Namzi. So controversial opinion here. This one might be right direction. I just think we missed the mark a lot, and I know why we missed it because there was like hard coded and low clock issues, and so it's probably going to be another patch before we can get to it. But I think Trainer early is still way too good, and I think 3 Trainer is like never played.
Yeah. I mean, we saw some like Nomsy comps work. I think True Trainer is
Eh,
good, not necessarily for like the body anymore, which is I think a positive. It's just that Nomsy's Fireball providing that burn is extremely useful for like the early game fights, and usually Nomsy will be able to get a cast off, especially if you have Bruiser in. And so I think there's maybe some other types of tuning to be done on Nomsy's side, to like not guarantee a cast all the time.
the thing that bothers me is, you remember when we were first talking about this pitch, and I was very clear to from like balance. I'm like, when you put in two trainer early, it should not be a body, right? It should almost be like a hindrance, and then it's like you have to grow it up and train the dragon. I
Right.
still think it's adding too much value, and it reminds me of Innovator 3, where it's just like a 400 health body, like you said, with Bruiser that knocks it up to 600, is a lot of health for free. Not to witty free myself, but I think like there's a world where if Namzi's base health was 50, it would be correct.
Yeah, more scaling something with like 50. Maybe not that drastic, but like I see what you're getting at, and I kind of agree where it's like, early on you really want to like you have to nourish this Namzi and like take care of it. And then eventually this Namzi will be a monster.
Yep, cool. Warrior, I think directionally correct, but I think I fucked up the numbers hard here. I think this should have been like 120, 250, 420, if anything. The jump from 2 to 4 is like meh. It's only plus 100. And then the jump from 4 to 6, which is only a 1 emblem plus Yasuo, is massive. It's like chase trait levels. I think these, like, if the number 6 is correct, that might be the case, but I think the jump from 2 to 4 to 6 is incorrect here. And I think, like I said, this should have been like 120, 250, 420.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And it's I mean, on the plus side, directionally correct. It's like 4 and 6 warriors
Needed
good
buffed, yeah.
sometimes,
Yeah.
So yeah.
But yeah, I think 4 in particular is still like weak, right? If you can get 6, it's very playable. I just think 4 is a
I,
little too weak.
I've seen 4 work. I think it's not like one of the top tier comps, but like 4 warrior, if you get it, can work really well.
Oh yeah,
From
oh
what I've
yeah.
seen.
A
Yeah.
Yone 3 with Warrior 4 certainly
Yep.
does some damage. So
Yep.
Nidalee, again, directionally correct. It did not solve the problem. Nidalee 3 is still probably the most efficient one cost in the game. Way too easy to 3-star, then does way too much damage with a giant health pool thanks to Shapeshifter. Kent was right, and I hate this champion now. I hate it.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this a lot internally. We have a solve for the future, but yeah.
Yep. Lilia. I think this was one that there were people looking at the patch notes going, what are they doing? These buffs are crazy. I think Lilia is like right where she should be, maybe even a little weak, maybe. Though I would say that her perceived weakness is likely due to other things overcrowding her. I doubt we should buff her much. But like, what I will say that's really interesting is I'm seeing a lot of success with Lilia not running mage. You run 4 scale scorn with Lilia, and because of how often her second casts miss, that you just don't deal with that. You don't deal with the damage reduction of 3 mage. So you run like 4 scale scorn, 3 cavalier, and Lilia, and she can do some good damage.
It's funny because her second cast missed because her first cast does so much damage. But
Yep.
I think one thing on Lilia is just like I remember when we were doing the patch rundown, people saw the change list and they're like, "Oh my God, there are 4 different buffs to Lilia," that kind of thing, and it was like this unit's gonna be so overpowered and play Lilia every game. Um, and it turns out, she's like good. There are players that can make her work. She's a pretty good item holder, but she's like nowhere near broken at all.
Yep.
Like, if anything, like there's a perception that she's weak, and so I think we get called out a lot on like things that players were right on that like we were wrong on, and but never on things where like players were wrong on. And this is one of them where I think that like, you know, basically
It's fine.
we like
It's
saw we got the
fine.
numbers and it's like, Lilith needs this, and then it turns out like she really actually just needed this, and she's not broken anyway. So
Now, as a counter example to what you just discussed, let's talk about Nami. Uh, this was a giant, giant mistake. And it's funny because if you remember the patch rundown, I was like, Yeah, I don't know about this one.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, this one ended up being a giant mistake. I think Nami in particular, and we'll talk about it in the patch rundown, has just been a problematic champion. And it's funny because you don't realize how problematic she's being, but the amount of healing she can output and the amount of stall she can do to certain comps is just unhealthy. I think healing in our game, repeatable healing in our game, is going to have to be a lot more limited. I think in the past when it was things like Soraka as like a 4 or 5 cost maybe, but as a 2 cost that you can consistently 3-star, ugh. And like if there was one giant mistake of the patch, this is certainly it with big glowing fireworks and Mort you're an idiot and like nope, this one was a giant fuck up that we should take responsibility for.
yeah. To follow on the thing I just said, it's like, and there are times when players are right, and so this is one of them where it's like, I guess no one called out specifically Nami, but it was like, so many mage buffs. But like, yeah, we shouldn't have shipped like this specific mage buff.
Yep. Trist seems fine actually. The attack speed nerf did its job. Trist is still very playable. I'm happy with this change.
Agree.
I think if anything, there's a lesson for the future in our base stat framework of like not letting low cost champions go very high on their attack speed
Yeah,
as a base. I think spells can boost it up, right? Like a 1 cost Xayah reprint wouldn't be the end of the world, but I think at a baseline.
yeah. There's probably a framework here where it's like makes a lot of sense for most like AD units.
Yeah. Swain. I think Swain certainly fell off the map this patch. He's a lot weaker. That being said, I still think these changes were correct, and it will allow us to buff Dragonmancer. But yeah, I think these were correct, even though Swain has kind of fallen off the map, and so it might be easy to go it was wrong. But no, I think this is correct.
Yeah, I think mainly like agree with these mainly because like now we've seen that Swain has fallen off, Dragonmancer is harder to play. The power of the trait needs to go up, and so we can react to that.
Yep. Varus. I mean, at least there's no buff here. Like if there was a buff here, I'd have questions. We nerfed it, so that's good. Um, Clearly we were a little too chicken to nerf him more, which we probably shouldn't have been. But at least it's the right direction.
Agree. I mean, like for a switch shot unit, nerfing the base attack speed is pretty important. Like hits the unit pretty hard, but like just having the consistency of always being able to be 3-starred and players figuring out how to optimize that comp with augments and the supporting units. It just we he just ended up way too strong, and so we could have gone harder.
Yep. Volibear, I like the target change, the 444. That was good. I think the damage nerf was unnecessary. I think we could have just chilled out on that. I'm not seeing a ton of Volibear, but 20 damage wasn't huge. But I don't know. I think this was unnecessary.
Yeah, I feel like Volibear did need a damage nerf, but maybe less than what we did. That we went like 10% ish. Maybe should have been like 6. So maybe a little bit too far.
All right. Corki, same attack speed nerf. I'm pretty solid on these. I'm glad we did them all at once. That helped things. I'm just gonna say the
Yep,
same for Xayah. Get that out of the way. Glad we did Xayah. Guild Xayah is still a thing. A little less so than Varus, but like good.
agree.
Deja, still generally correct. Again, still probably not enough. I still think AP is suffering compared to AD. Although it's funny I say that because every time I say AP is suffering, everyone goes, no, it's not, because you can play the mage line into the Ao Shen line. And it's like, yes, that is the one AP line that is very, very good. Everything else is not. And Deja is part of that. Everything else is not. Yes, she can do okay, but I still think she has room to go up.
Yeah, I think the wave can just do slightly more damage. I mean, she also kind of struggles into the Astral matchup because she gets CC'd and Varus one shots her in the CC. But she's like this got her closer to the intended profile of what Dejo should have been.
Yep. Shio Yu, I'm glad we did the stun duration nerf. I think we overshot the attack damage ratio nerf a bit. I think it was probably closer to like 275, 285.
Yeah.
That being said, Shio Yu is not bad. It's just, like I said, maybe like 3%, 5% too far kind of thing.
Yeah, we targeted a 20% damage nerf. I think that ended up being too far. We could have maybe gone with like 15% damage nerf.
Yeah.
She was doing a lot of damage, but now it's just like we're just not seeing an issue use. Also, you skipped Tech Room.
Hecarim, great. I think that's just good change. It didn't really
Yeah,
do much, but it's a good change.
I've seen Tech Room cast twice sometimes, so
Yay!
yeah, it's good.
Siphon. Unlike Xiaoyu, I think this one was a little controversial, but I actually think Siphon landed right where he should be. I think Siphon is still a powerful champion people are playing around. I think the bite's still solid. He just doesn't AoE team comps down, which is good. That's not what he's supposed to do. I think Siphon was a slam dunk.
Yeah, I actually do think this landed really well. Like Assassin Siphon is still a thing, just doesn't wipe the entire board in one cast anymore,
Yeah.
but like still does a lot of damage and it's like still a good unit. So I think this change was really good.
Yeah. All right. Aurelion Sol rework. You want to go first?
Yeah, okay. Uh yeah, so this change, I think the overall change was healthier for Aurelion Sol, but I think we were too scared to go higher on the numbers and also even the cast cadence. I think because he takes so long to cast, we could have given him like lower mana pool and more black hole damage, especially at 2-star, because right now 2-star like that damage going up 125 for like 20 more gold just doesn't feel as worth it as it should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think two things to call out here. The first one is that I feel like the mana cost didn't take into account the channel time. Oftentimes it's like, okay, you've got 90 mana. Now wait 2 to 3 more seconds while you do this long ass channel, and you can't gain mana during this channel. And we needed to account for that. If you compare that to like Deja, who's 100 mana, but throws out the spell and gets right back to it, right? And that's even a slow cast time. And so we kind of needed to account for that, and that feels like the thing we missed. The other thing is that, yeah, we just really misread the AP number. Because I remember we had this number lower, and then
Yep.
we, like, raised it a little bit as it went out the door. And it was like, are we sure about this? Might be... Like, no, we were way off. I think we were way off on this number combined with this mana cost. So
Yep.
I will also say, you know, this is not making excuses. This is just factual that, like, we really didn't sim this as much as we should have, I think, to like really get some good fights here. And so I think next patch, you're going to see these giant list of buffs that are going to look scary. But I think we're going in more confident that like, no, this is where Aurelion Sol should be.
Yeah, I think part of this was like in my initial tuning, I was really afraid of launch Aurelion Sol where you know your backliners instantly gets one shot or like unkillable monster that just like ends up wiping the entire board. And so it was like, you know, 2 casts to kill a backliner, but turns out like Aurelion Sol is really inconsistent and can sometimes not really inconsistent, kind of inconsistent, can miss if positioned around all that stuff, and so led to a very inconsistent champion
Yep.
in winning fights. And so like if the damage number is higher, you know, if you get it high enough, maybe you can one-shot things and maybe that's okay.
Yep. Pike, health buff. Yep. Honestly, not enough. But so directionally good, but fine.
Agree.
Shyvana, I think, okay, the armor and MR change was just unnecessary. That was just a miss. The mana change was good. Let her cast more. The buff was good. Let her cast more. It didn't solve the fundamental problem, which is we're still dealing with a percent health champion, which means you still need AP. Otherwise, I'll never get over the most embarrassing thing. I think it was Soju I was watching. It might have been someone else. Shyvana 2, breathing fire on a Twitch 1. And they're like, is it dealing damage? Is it bugged? What's going on? And it's like, well, that's how percent health works. And so that's just not great.
Yeah. Yeah, that like seeing like those tiny numbers pop up, you know, like 25 damage, whatever, from like your gigantic dragon is just not correct. I mean, we tried to do like the simplest changes basically to make her a lot better. I think they didn't end up working. I really like the mana buff though, but the other two just not enough basically.
Yep. Soraka buff. I think this is solid. I think Soraka is now actually having an impact on combat. So I think this is a good
really
change.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a controversial one. Zoe. So
Yeah.
we buffed Zoe. I know there are some players that have some strong feels here. How are you feeling about Zoe?
So I actually think that okay, well she bugs out Ivern sometimes, and I think that's a problem. But other than that, like I feel like she is too strong slightly, but not that she casts too often. It's that that first cast comes out so early, and it's just like they're two very impactful spells that swing the fight way too early into the fight, and so like that can come out a little bit later, in my opinion.
Yeah, I wonder. It's funny, right? If you think like 50 out of 100 or 0 out of 80, which would be healthier, right? And it's like, because the 0 out of 80 would be slower, but obviously she'd cast more. It's pretty tricky. I will say, I'm glad Zoe is like a 5 cost you were excited to find, right? It's like, oh my god, I got a Zoe. I'm so lucky, versus like, eh, it's a Zoe. So I think
Yep.
directionally that's still correct. Is she a little strong? Probably. Would I make this change again? Probably. Because I think between the two states where it was like, a Zoe, and oh my god, a Zoe, I need to find a way to get this in my comp, we want 5 costs in the latter camp. And so like I think this still is like correction, like it was directionally correct and we ended up closer to the truth, but we did overshoot the truth a little.
Yeah, I agree. Like I think stepping back and being like, would I is this a good buff and is she in a good spot? It's like I or like, would you prefer this or the way she was previous patch? I would definitely prefer her in the current state because she should feel like a high roll as you mentioned. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Bramble Vest, more armor. Yeah. Again, minor change, but yes, it needed it.
yep.
Jeweled Gauntlet. Long term, good change. Short term, still didn't solve the AP problem, and you're still not excited to build Jeweled Gauntlet unless you have IE, so we still have some work to do there.
I think it's actually a lot better now though. Like I've seen people slam Jewel Gauntlet. I've definitely slammed Jewel Gauntlet, and where it's like, this is like at least consistent. So like I'm happy with it. Obviously not like the best item to build BIS and everything, but like directionally like this made the item buildable, which is good.
Yep, that's fair. Ornn items, Infinity Force 30%, Muramana buff. The Muramana buff might have been the one that might have been a little overkill, but I will say, like, it was the worst item and now it's not, so, like, cool. And Obsidian Cleaver, less AD, propelled health, lower health. Like, the Ornn augment is actually, like, pretty close to balance now, right?
Yeah, I think well the main thing from the Muramana one is I'm happy that it gives Aurelion Sol, I mean Alshin, a complete second cast like after 5 seconds. That's kind of like a cool thing, but um
I mean,
other than that, like I feel like Ornn items actually landed in a really good spot. Like the augment seems balanced now. It's a little bit strong, but like good, and it's really exciting to play around. So
yeah, I think this is the kind of augment that keeping it strong is going to be fun. Players have fun with these items. So, like, if you told me this is sitting at like a 4.3, and as I look on tactics, I look and it's literally at 4.3, I'm like, good? That's probably right where we want it. So, I'll
yeah,
take it.
yeah, and plus you have to like play around whatever you get to. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Best friends nerf. Yep, still a good augment.
yep,
Still an amazing augment. Probably could have gone harder, to be honest.
agree.
Blue battery. I think this change was important. I think we really should have put in the Ezreal and Karma compensation that we didn't. That'd be the one thing I'd call out here. Is it's like, and it's funny because like Karma's not the worst. It's Karma's a pretty good top 4 comp. I think Ezreal's suffering a little bit right now, but it removed this one like unique fantasy, which again we needed to, which sucks, but we needed to. But I think we should have got that in.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, just like I think there was some fear that like this would make the augment really weak. But I think it's still a very exciting pick for when you're playing a caster comp. I mean, mainly just mages, but like take mages, you're playing mages, you take this basically most of the time because it helps you cycle so much faster. So
Yep. Cluttered Mind. Now this is a funny one, right? Because it started at 4, you had it at 4. Everyone yelled at you. Can't. Oh my god, this is gonna be wildly OP. It's insane. It's stupid. It's insane. And you hesitantly nerfed it to 3. When you did, it was like one of the worst augments in the entire game, sitting at like 5.4 or some shit. It was garbage. So you buffed it back to 4, and it's sitting at 4.41 on tactics.tools, but that's because you can get it at 3.2 where it's kind of garbo. If we just look at 2.1, it says 4.06, so it's a little strong. Maybe not like wildly OP, but a little strong. So begs the question, like, again, between the two states, I prefer the 4.06 to the 5.4. So I'm glad we made this change. Long term, might need to figure out some in between.
Yeah, agree. Definitely would prefer like one of the more interesting augments like this that altered your playstyle to be on the strong side. So yeah, for sure would prefer this state. But long term, we'll think of something where it we can hopefully land it somewhere closer to the middle.
Yep. Cybernetic implants. I think this change was a slam dunk. I think we finally got it where it's supposed to be.
Yep. I don't. Yeah, augment seems good.
Yep. Double Trouble. The one thing I'll say about Double Trouble, I think this change helped, and I think the augment's not nearly as broken. It's still strong. Obviously, Double Trouble Varus being the best use case right now. I think one of the things, and we're going to talk about this longer term and patch rundown and stuff, is like valuing AD and AP at equal levels, I think has been a mistake. And I think this is the kind of augment that really highlights that, where it's like 33 AP, 33 AD, let's go.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think we'll struggle with like splitting this in a lot of tooltips just because of
Yeah.
like tooltip length.
Yes.
But to the extent we can keep them the same, yeah. But like obviously the AD is going to be worth more than the AP.
Yep. Yep. Hallucinate. I think this was a good change. I think the augment is probably as close to balance as we can get it. I think as Mirage gets more powerful, this augment will go up in power. So I think this is good.
Yeah, I've seen people really excited to take this, and I mean it shows it's like people who take this they can do really really well with it. So 1 second made a pretty decent difference. So
Yep. Yep. All right. March of Progress. This augment is very strong. Um, Interestingly enough, I feel like this augment is like probably one of the best top 4 augments in the game, but actually kind of hard to first place with.
it's weird because like the breakpoints, if you actually calculate it out, isn't that much different. Like your level 8 is slightly sooner, but not even that much sooner. So
I think it's more the level 5 and 6. Like I played it on PBE yesterday as I was doing some testing, and it was like you hit level 6 at 2.6, and that gives you such a leg up.
I think it was already like that.
I don't think so.
Even at 4, but
Either way, this
I have to pull
augment's
it back up.
fun.
But yeah,
And again, between the two states of is it bad or is it slightly a little good, I'm glad we made this change. So
yep, I agree. It's another one of those like very transformative augments that make you change your game. So
yep.
yeah, agree.
Ricochet will now bounce to further targets. I mean, cool, but Ricochet's still not very exciting.
Yeah, it doesn't do enough damage, but like it's a lot better. It's just still not good enough.
Yep. Evoker 4 and 6 buff, good. Still has the problem that Evokers are AP users, and AP users are a lot harder to play and not great.
I think also just ASOL didn't land strong enough, and so Evokers didn't land strong enough.
Yep. Guild 7. I think this was fun. And I think it's been really fun to watch players like, should I go Guild 7? Should I take out Rise? Should I, like, it's been fun. I think Guild 7 worked out.
A lot of stats. Yeah, exciting.
Shapeshifter, directionally correct. I think there's a world where 2 has to go down even more, but for now it's fine. So I think maybe buffing 6 was actually incorrect here, though, because, man, those 6 comps have a lot of health. If you faced a 6 Shapeshifter Nidalee 3, it's like, why do I have to put up with this?
Yeah, that's the only thing. I think the 2 nerf was like spot on in my opinion, but the 6 change, we maybe didn't need to go that far, even if we want to just buff like a little bit to encourage people to go for it. But yeah, I think did not need to go back up to 145.
I think Shapeshifter is another one of those good examples of like, if you remember when we launched it, it was 50, 100, 150. And for the first 2 weeks, players were like, Shapeshifters are garbage, and there's never a world where you would play 6 Shapeshifter. Now we're sitting here looking at 135 going, can we nerf it more? Like,
Yeah.
So
I was playing 6 Shapeshifter on patch 1.
no.
Yeah.
Vladimir. I think this change was correct. I think if you look at where we are now with Vladimir, I think Vladimir is correct. He's not part of the mage problem. He's actually probably where he's supposed to be. That being said, there was a bug where he got 20 mana per auto. That was clearly incorrect and not what we needed. So, oops. And so we gotta, not do that, I guess.
You know what the surprising thing about that bug was that even with that bug, he wasn't the main contributor to like the power of
Well, yeah, it was more
the
Nami and
mid.
Rise,
It's
but
still just yeah, it was just mainly just Nami and Rise still like destroying everything. I mean, Silas was like is obviously really
he
tanky too, but it's
at
not
full.
even like even with that bug, it's like Silas is still tankier than
I
than
think
Vlad.
the big harm it did though was like 2-1 to 2-6 when you couldn't find the Silas, you had an unkillable Vlad. Like Vlad is kind of like Aatrox, where it's like Vlad 2 is actually really good 2-1 to 2-6.
Right.
Just like Aatrox falls off a cliff and you can't like use him in the end game, but that's what a one cost should be. So like, yeah, like I said, I think this change was actually correct if you ignore the bug.
Agree.
Braum tooltip, yep.
Yep.
Nico 3, I don't think this actually addressed the problem. Like it's fine, but like we have a longer term thing if we're gonna fix Nico 3.
Yeah, I had some discussion or like had some discussions basically with some challenger players, and it's like this. I mean, this is like the idea here, make her like super tanky frontline, but like that's not the fun part. And like three-starring her, you're not really just looking for a ton of health, and so maybe it wasn't the right change, and we should have saved it for like a longer term change.
Yeah. Talon nerf, directionally correct, not enough.
I agree.
Bard, I think this change was a slam dunk. I think Bard 1 is still a very good unit you want to slot in. I think now there's a bigger difference between Bard 1 and Bard 2. Maybe not even enough still, but like I'm happy with this. I feel like Bard is like right where he should be now.
Yeah, I agree. Same.
Yasuo, change was just correct. I think the 5 AD is fine. I think Yasuo is still a very desirable 5 cost. Great. And I'm glad he can actually kill 20,000 health pool people. So great.
Yep, I agree.
Archangel now has a stack counter. You know, you're going to laugh at me, but I think this was actually incorrect as the number 1, 2, 3. I think this should actually say the number of AP it's giving you 20, 40, 60 kind of thing. I think that's the one thing I don't like about that change.
Yeah, I mean, I see. Yeah, we went for the 1, 2, 3 for the consistency, but like you want to be able to quickly look and see how much of the thing is giving you, and it's not easy to calculate. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Now, that being said, you're going to laugh at me because this is inconsistent, and I realize that, but I still feel this way. I would not have Rageblade go 6, 12, 18, 24. I think Rageblade, this worked out great. And one of the coolest things I've seen is people showing off their stack counter and how big they can get it. The record I've seen is Soulless hit 108. I got one below that. I got 107. I couldn't beat him.
What?
Yep.
What are you guys building? How does it get so high?
It's long fights. But it's been
Holy
fun,
crap.
and that's just a cool little thing of like who's got the biggest counter, So
Yeah, it's been fun like watching the counter go up and end the fight. 54. I got 59 this time or whatever. I don't know how you guys are getting to 100.
107, buddy.
Yeah.
Zerat Portal now works more reliably with and against assassins. Are we okay with lying in patch notes?
So it does work more reliably. So not exactly, So the key here is that I didn't lie because I didn't say it works perfectly. I said it works more.
More, yeah, more. It's more than 0.
No, it's actually pretty reliable now. It's just like there are situations, and I think I might know why, like where like it just doesn't really work against assassins. But like for the most part, you're catching assassins with it if you position well.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, we'll get there. It's definitely an improvement, and I'm glad you did it. I'm just giving you a hard time.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, combat training. I think the starting AD was good here. I will just go on record as continuous saying I hate this augment because this augment feels like it does nothing. And even more annoying is like you get frustrated when like your Tom Kench gets the kill instead of the Tristana. And you're like, would you stop attacking and let me get my stack? And then you end up with occasionally, like the worst one I've seen is I saw a Nidalee with 500 AD, a Nidalee 3, and I'm like, I don't want to be in this lobby anymore. But all that being said, that is my personal biases. Doesn't make me right. And this change was probably good.
Game is making you feel feelings.
It is making me feel feelings of rage and despair.
I think it's kind of a lesson to learn about like on kill, especially if the on kill is something that's like permanent for your unit. We have to be kind of careful around how that works. Basically, we have to be careful around that mechanic. But I think the starting AD was a good change because it's when you pick it, it's not like, oh, I got nothing. It's I got the same amount of AD that I would have gotten from like cybernetic enhancements or implants on my entire team.
Yep. Living Forge can no longer grant Ornn arguments that are granted you. To quote the players, hallelujah.
Yeah, yeah.
Good change. I will say, so next patch we have a change where a few of the Ornn artifacts won't be unique. Will that make you want to undo this change?
No, because I think for the most part, like you still don't want it, and most of them are still unique. Like Obsidian
Yeah.
Cleaver can't not be unique
Yep.
because of its effect, and so yeah, I wouldn't want to. But if players get Living Forge and Portable Forge, and you want to opt into like stacking, say, Infinity Force, you should be able to.
Yep. Yep. Cool. Makeshift Armor 3. This is one of those patch notes that's like, yep, it exists. Yep, it's fine. It's like, okay.
Yeah, maybe not enough too, but yeah.
Yep. Double up changes seems good. I have not. No one's been complaining about the pick order since this went out, so I admittedly have not played much double up, but seems like it's been good.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
cool. All right, so we did all that. We fixed a bunch of bugs, and we shipped the meta, and it was a dumpster fire because of the Vlad bug and the Nami bug. And now that everything else came down, mages were finally playable. And what we saw was the Sylas Rise Nami mid game be disgusting. So we ended up having to do a like next day kind of hotfix. The Nami revert, I think for sure. My God. I think honestly Nami still needs work, and we'll talk about that in the next patch because she's getting that work. But I think Nami has been particularly problematic of a champion this set, and there's some big takeaways to take from Nami.
Yeah, but also to like, I mean, part of this of why we did this so urgently was also just that augment bug where it was like, we
Oh,
really
right.
need to do this right away.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it was like, give it a day to give it another day to settle maybe and see like, is this
Eh.
how problematic is it?
I'm glad we did this though, because like, okay, you're right that the four augment thing was much more important. But could you imagine going through the weekend with the Nami at 75?
Oh, not a weekend. I meant like maybe we wait until, Friday and
Sure.
make the call later, that kind of thing. But
Sure.
because we made the call right away, we were like, yeah, we're gonna do something because this is not cool, and we ended up shipping on Thursday, but
Yep.
making the call right away on Wednesday.
Yep. Rise. So this was one that when we posted this, we got a lot of the feedback of you're not only nerfing things, you're nerfing it worse than it was before. How dare you? There's just no way. What are they doing? This is another one where I get to say I told you so, because I think this nerf was correct directionally, but so I'm like, if we hadn't done this nerf, I think mages would be even more dominant than they are right now. I'm glad we did this. Rise isn't particularly the strength of the mage comp right now. It's like Nami, Sylas, plus Rise, and then Fast 8, and then find your Ao Shen, etc., etc. But what I will say is you and I both know the Rise change that needs to happen. The thing Sloan worked on, I think, really proves where we need to take Rise. And actually, you and I were talking about things for 12-15. That might be the one we have to do for 12-15.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Rise scales so exponentially high right now that it's like his floor is so low and his ceiling is so high for what he can do in a combat, and ends up being pretty unhealthy. So it's like he either kills nothing or he kills like everything.
what is it? Like his 7th cast is bigger than an Ao Shen cast?
Yeah, it's not cool, especially like because the goal of him is kind of to get him to overtime, and with the, Sylas Nami power right now, they just like stall forever. You go to overtime and then he wipes the board. Yay!
He said with all the sarcasm in the world.
This unit.
I know, not one of my favorites. Okay, and then we fixed the armory bug. That one was not great. Glad we fixed that quick though. Seeing people with 4 augments was certainly something.
Yeah, yeah, that was not good.
So cool. And then after that, where'd we end up? We ended up in a spot where there is a large group of players that perceive the meta to be bad. It's like you must play Varus or you must play Sylas into late game Ao Shen, otherwise you're doomed. But we have seen a lot of players actually do very well outside of that as well. I don't think the meta is nearly as bad as people are making it out to be, and this is one of those metas where I think this is really showing the people who are willing to go outside their comfort zone and not. I'm not going to say it's the best meta we've ever had or anything like that, but I don't think it's nearly as bad as people are making it out to be. I'll also say it shows some learnings about Astral's design long term we may need to talk about, which is just like it's so consistent that as soon as it's good, it's just the easiest thing to play because you can just make it happen no matter what.
Yeah, I think inevitability in TFT is something we need to like tread carefully around. Like it can be possible in some cases. Like I guess Treasure Dragon is one good example of this. Like you can hit one specific item component guaranteed all the time if you want. But like stuff like Rise wipes the board at overtime, or like you guarantee a 3-star your entire board, that kind of stuff. We should be careful with. I think is like the long-term lesson.
Yep. Cool.
Also just I think meta note, like I think players right now are really honed in on like the the S tier, what you can play at level 6 and level 7, and these are the best things. But if you keep your mind open, I think we've seen a lot of different things succeed. There are a lot of different ways to play both the early game, mid game, early game and mid game. So like it's not as rigid as it's coming out to be, and you can still do really, really well without playing those S tier comps. So I think we're in like an okay meta. We obviously have a few things that are like frustrating to play against and like frustrating to see all the time. But it's not that bad.
Yep. Yep. And you know how it is. The people who think it's bad, that's fine. They'll think it's bad. Nothing we could say can convince them otherwise. But we'll also keep making it better. So
Yeah, this is not to say that we did like a perfect job or anything like that. Like
no.
I'm just trying to say that
no.
like yeah, it's just that it's
Varus.
Yep. But we're also aware of the issues, and we're well, if you watch Patch Rundown after this, we have some stuff coming.
Wait, there's
so.
issues? I thought this was no. Cool. All right, that's gonna do it for us. This is almost an hour long. Let's wrap this up. So crazy enough, we're already getting towards mid-set stuff and everything. We just did our first mid-set playtest today. So yeah. And then I already mentioned the thing earlier, so on set 8. So
What? They're working on set 8 already?
What? I know. All right, that's gonna do it from us. Until next time, take it easy.